Hands where I can see them! The shout ripped through the air, sharp, sudden, and commanding. David froze instantly, his fingers still hovering inches from the door handle of his own car. He turned slowly, confusion etched across his face, and found himself staring at two uniformed police officers. The taller one, hiding behind mirrored sunglasses and an arrogant smirk, stepped forward. "You're under arrest for attempted grand theft auto." David's mind spun. Just a few seconds ago, he had been walking toward his car, ready to leave after a long day. But when he tried unlocking it, the door refused to open. Frowning, he tried again, twisting the key and tugging on the handle. Nothing. Maybe the lock jammed, or maybe he grabbed the wrong key. That small moment of frustration was all it took. From a squad car parked nearby, two officers had been watching and suddenly sprang into action, assuming he was breaking in. "What?" David blurted. "This is my car." The taller cop ignored him, already twisting David's wrist behind his back with a rough jerk. "Sure it is," he said mockingly. "You must be real bold trying to steal a car right in front of two officers." The second cop, clean cut, younger, clearly nervous, stood silently by, shifting from foot to foot. "Officer." "Please," David said, voice calm but strained. "Check the center console. My wallet and license are right there." "Oh, I bet they are," the older officer sneered, his tone dripping with sarcasm. He turned to his partner and muttered just loud enough for David to hear. "Can you believe the nerve? Lying straight to our faces." "Sir, please, I'm telling you the truth," David pleaded. "You have the right to remain silent." The older cop cut him off coldly, yanking the cuffs tighter. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. Have you ever seen something deeply unfair happen right in front of you and felt powerless to stop it? Before we go further, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe in fairness for everyone, no matter their skin color, tap that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for more true stories that matter." Back at the scene, the younger officer finally spoke up. "Shouldn't we at least check the car?" The older one scoffed. "Maybe you should just keep your mouth shut and open the door for me, rookie, so I can book this clown." David was shoved into the back seat of the patrol car, the door slamming behind him with a dull thud. "Just check the car," he tried again, voice muffled through the glass. "Save it for the judge," the older cop snapped. Only one man seemed unsure, the younger officer, and that hesitation, that flicker of doubt, was about to mean everything. Inside the patrol car, David sat rigid, cuffs biting into his wrists. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. "Officer," he said through the window, "please, just check the center console. You'll see my license and registration in there." The younger cop paused. "You're really saying this is your car?" "I swear," David said. "It's all in there. Just look." Before he could act, the older officer barked again. "Don't waste your time. He's lying." "And you're falling for it!" The older officer's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Still, the younger cop pushed back, uncertain. "What if he's telling the truth?" "You know his kind," the older man snapped, venom in his tone. "All they ever do is lie and steal." There was a heavy pause. The younger officer's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. "His kind?" he repeated slowly. "That's completely out of line." But the veteran officer wasn't backing down. "Let it go, Edwards. I'm your commanding officer, and this is my call." David could only stare in disbelief as the argument unfolded in front of him. "Please," he pleaded through the car window. "It'll take 10 seconds. Just check the car." The older cop turned his back and slammed the door shut with finality. At the station, David was booked, fingerprinted, and tossed into a cold holding cell. "You're making a huge mistake," he said again, voice echoing in the small room. "Check the car. Everything you need to clear this up is in there." The older cop just scoffed and walked away. But Officer Edwards lingered behind. He stepped closer to the bars and crouched slightly. "If you're really the owner," he asked carefully, "where exactly is your ID?" "In the center console," David answered without hesitation. "Please, officer." "I'm telling you the truth." Edwards studied his face, his tone, his eyes, every detail. Then he stood up straight. "All right," he said quietly. "Sit tight. I'll be back." David blinked. "Why are you helping me?" Edwards met his gaze. Because fairness shouldn't depend on what someone looks like. If you're innocent, you deserve a chance to prove it. Have you ever had to risk your own reputation just to do what's right? If you believe justice should come before rank, race, or pressure, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Story Arc for more powerful stories that challenge the system. Moments later, Edwards walked into the break room, where the senior officer was calmly pouring himself a cup of coffee like nothing had happened. "Sergeant," Edwards began cautiously, "I've been thinking, maybe we should at least check out the guy's story. It's the least we can do before we lock up someone who might be innocent." The older cop didn't even look up. "Drop it, Edwards. He's playing you like a rookie. I already called the impound. They're sending a tow truck." Edwards folded his arms. "Even if you're right, we might find something that helps our case. Just let me look before they take it away." The sergeant's expression hardened, the casual tone fading. "Don't even think about it, sir." Edwards raised an eyebrow. "If you go behind my back," the older man hissed, leaning in close, "I'll make your life in this department a living hell." The silence that followed was thick and bitter. Edwards gave a small nod. "All right," he said flatly. "I'll drop it." But as he walked away, his jaw set like stone. He wasn't dropping anything, not even close. Outside, Edwards pulled out his phone, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. He knew exactly who to call. Detective Ramirez, a trusted friend who still owed him a favor. "Hey," Edwards said under his breath, "I need your help. Meet me at the impound lot. I need to get into a vehicle, quietly." Ramirez hesitated. "Does this have anything to do with your sergeant?" "I'll explain when you get there," Edwards replied. "Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules and standing alone to do it." But what would you do if your boss ordered you to walk away from justice? If you've ever had to choose between your job and your values, hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Story Arc for more stories that prove integrity still matters. Later that evening, Detective Ramirez arrived at the impound lot. Using a small set of lockpicking tools, he popped open the driver's side door. Edward slipped inside, heart pounding, and pulled open the center console, empty. He frowned, then checked the glove box, also empty. No wallet, no license, nothing. He sat there stunned. Had David lied to him? The car was silent, the air heavy. Edwards went through it again. Center console, glove box, under the seat, even the side pockets. Nothing. Not even a receipt or scrap of paper. David had been so sure, so calm. Now doubt crept in. "You sure this is the right car?" Ramirez asked quietly from outside. "Yeah," Edwards said slowly, scanning the VIN on the dashboard. "This doesn't make sense." He stepped out of the car, rubbing his forehead in frustration. That's when a sharp voice echoed behind him. "Well, well, well, look what we have here." Edwards turned. Sergeant Briggs stood by the gate, arms crossed, that smug smirk plastered across his face. "You have any idea how bad this looks?" Briggs barked. "Going behind my back, dragging a detective into it? You'll be lucky if this little stunt doesn't cost you your badge." Edwards met his gaze evenly. "Sorry, Sergeant. I had to be sure." "Oh, I'm sure you did," Briggs sneered. "And did you find anything? A license? Registration? A shred of proof?" Edwards glanced back toward the empty console and shook his head. "No, turns out you were right." Briggs grinned, clapping him on the shoulder with mock approval. "Of course I was. Now get in the car before I really lose my temper." The drive back to the station was quiet. Edwards stared out the window, jaw locked. Something about it still didn't sit right. Back inside, he headed straight for the holding cells. David was sitting on a metal bench, wrists cuffed in front of him, head low. When he saw Edwards, his eyes lit up. "You found my license?" "Can I go home now?" Edwards hesitated, his voice flat. "I searched your whole car. There was nothing there." David frowned deeply. "That's impossible." "I left it in the center console." "I swear." Edwards stepped closer, his frustration bubbling. "Do you know how much trouble I'm in because of you? I went out on a limb, and for what? You made me look like an idiot." "Listen," David said, his tone steady but desperate. "Something's not right." "I put it there. I'm not lying." But Edwards shook his head. "I trusted you, and you lied to me. I can't do anything else. Have you ever stood up for someone only to feel like a fool afterward?" If you've ever had your faith tested, hit that like button and subscribe to Story Arc for more stories that remind us how truth can hide in plain sight. Edwards walked away without another word. But this story was far from over. The next morning, the squad room buzzed with energy. Officers filled every chair, coffee cups in hand, murmuring quietly as the police chief stepped to the front. "Morning," the chief began, clearing his throat. "Before we get into today's agenda, I want to recognize an incident from yesterday." He scanned the room, eyes landing on one man. "Sergeant Briggs," he said. "Step forward." Briggs rose proudly, puffing out his chest as he strutted toward the front. He adjusted his belt with the swagger of a man certain he'd done everything right. "Sergeant," the chief said, "why don't you tell us about that arrest you made yesterday?" Briggs grinned smugly. "Caught a would-be car thief in the act, sir. Had him processed and booked within the hour." "Good," the chief said with a nod. "That makes this next part much easier." He turned toward the crowd. "Officer Edwards, front and center." The room quieted instantly. Edwards rose, back straight, unsure of what was coming. He stepped forward, heart pounding. "Tell me, officer," the chief began evenly, "is it true you disobeyed a direct order from your commanding officer and conducted an unauthorized search of the suspect's vehicle?" Edwards swallowed hard. "Yes, sir, I did. I just wanted to be sure. I take full responsibility." The chief paused, pacing slowly in front of the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, he said, "Interesting, because I'm glad you did." The room went still. "I rigged that car with hidden cameras," the chief continued, his voice firm. "We've been receiving complaints, claims of racial profiling from this precinct." I didn't want to believe them. "So I set up a test." "A test?" Edwards asked, confusion flashing across his face. The chief turned toward the door. It opened, and in walked David. No cuffs, no orange jumpsuit. Instead, he wore a sharp gray suit, polished shoes, and a detective's badge clipped to his belt. The entire room fell silent. "This," the chief said, "is Detective David, from another division. He volunteered to assist in our investigation by pretending to be a man locked out of his car. We wanted to see how our officers would respond." Edwards blinked in disbelief. "But I searched the car," he said. "There was nothing. No ID, no wallet." "That's because someone got there first," the chief replied, tapping his tablet. He played a video on the screen. The footage showed Sergeant Briggs at the car, glancing around before reaching into the center console and pulling out a wallet and license. He slipped them into his own pocket, then locked the door again. Gasps filled the room. "Tampering with evidence," the chief said quietly. "Caught on camera." Briggs stumbled back, face pale. I can explain. You can explain it to the judge," David said sharply, stepping forward. He grabbed Briggs's wrist and turned him around, cuffing him in front of the stunned room. "You're under arrest for tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent." Briggs looked shattered as David read him his rights, the same words he had once thrown at an innocent man. Have you ever seen justice hit like a freight train? Then go ahead and like this video, and subscribe to Story Arc for more stories where truth always finds the light. When the room finally settled, the chief turned to Edwards. "You risked your career to do what's right," he said. "That takes real courage." Then he smiled. "Looks like we have an opening for a sergeant. What do you say?" Edwards blinked, speechless. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. "I'd be honored, sir." Justice had spoken, and this time it spoke loud enough for everyone to hear.